Hello, everybody. Welcome. I felt so inspired to come on today because there's some stuff that I've been thinking about around what it's really like to be a man in this particular moment and in the context and in particularly in the context of the Me Too movement. And I just want to kind of talk a little bit about that. I am going to share this, so if you could just give me one hot little second. Thanks for joining. Feel free to say hello as you pop on. And I will be right with you with my full attention in about 20 seconds. So here we go. Okay. All right. So as you pop on, feel free to say hello. My name is Lisa Rose. I am a dating and relating coach, and I am the founder of Deeper Love, Better Sex. So I think we all are familiar with the Me Too movement and what has come to be exposed, in particular, what it's really like for women to be in an environment where men have so much power and so much control, and what has happened in the face of that disparity and inequities around power. And thank you, my dear. I do not in any way want to dismiss or undermine what that means for, this moment in time, what is being exposed and revealed. Like, I'm all for that. I think it's an overdue conversation. I think it also really speaks to what happens when men hold a lot of power, which has been true in this culture for a very long time. At the same time, for me, most of my life, men have been really powerful friends and allies. And as I have coached more and more men in the last couple of years, I have also gotten like a bird's eye inside view of what it's really like to be a man. And there's a lot of pain and a lot of confusion that comes really directly out of the cultural conditioning, the mixed messages, the crazy messages that men are exposed to and expected to conform to. So the reason I want to speak to this is because the kind of behavior that's been exposed and what's been going down, it doesn't come out of a vacuum. It happens in a context. And the context actually breeds certain ways of thinking, certain perspectives, and certain behaviors that have been really sanctioned and condoned. So anytime this is resonating with you, feel free to say something in the comments or just let me know that you're here. I would love to hear actually from both men and women. So as you're joining, just let me know. So I want to talk a little bit about what happens for a boy as he's on the cusp of manhood. Because this is when a lot of the messages about his sexuality and about his manhood start to really take shape. So for a boy, hormonally, there's a really big change hormonally somewhere between 13 and 16, depending on the body. And I want to give you a little analogy about what testosterone is like in the body, because it's not that I've experienced it in my own body, but I've had enough conversations and been around it that I think I have a feel for it. So imagine that you are really hungry and you go to a buffet where there's lots of food that you would like to eat. And instead of society and your parents and people saying, oh, have what you like, follow what looks really good to you, it's fabulous that you're so hungry, this is a really good thing, the messages that you get instead are, why are you hungry today? What's wrong with you? Oh God, what was the other one I was thinking? Oh, you shouldn't feel that way, it's dangerous. There's a lot of shaming around desire, and around sexuality at very early, actually all throughout life for men and for women, but in particular when it happens really early on, when there's this big surge of feelings. My point around the hunger, the analogy, is that testosterone is an incredibly strong drive. Sexual desire is an incredibly strong drive. Anybody relate to this? Just put a 1 in the comments if you are resonating with this. And that is a beautiful thing. What often happens is that there's this overlay of shame around the fact that there are these desires. And when boys on the cusp of manhood start to act on those desires, whether they start to pursue girls or whether they start to chase girls or whether they start to have sex, and they act on their desire, they are often so shut down and so shamed rather than being celebrated for the fact that they actually have desire. Celebrated and then also educated about how to be with that desire in responsible ways and inclusive ways. Like, imagine if the conversation from parents or teachers or older men, besides teenagers, was, yeah, it's fantastic that you're having all these feelings and sensations and drives in your body. That is awesome. And there's ways that you can pursue those drives with a woman that will feel really amazing for both of you, rather than this idea that a man has to be kind of chasing the woman down, doing something to her against her will because she will never want any part of it, and that's the only way that he can have what his desire wants. So I'm just going to pause for a moment, because I think that actually really captures energetically what it's like for a man around his sexuality when it's not okay for him to just feel and celebrate what he's feeling in his body. And because we don't have mentors, we don't in our culture have mentors where a boy is mentored by a man, where he gets to learn about, this is how you come into the celebration of your sexuality with a woman. So many men feel like they have two choices. They either have to take something that they want because they can't have it if they ask, hence what we've been seeing, all the rape, all the assault, all of the exploitation, or they become very passive and very repressed in their sexuality, which is actually a major turnoff to us women, because that fire and that energy is such a big part of what makes a man a man. And when it's living in him in a healthy and integrated way, it's incredibly alluring and sexy as fuck to us women. One has a very shadowy aspect, and one has a very integrated and owned aspect. And then the other piece that I just want to speak to, hey Kenny, nice to see you, is that alongside all of this confusion and craziness around their sexuality, men are basically allowed 2 or 3 emotions. Boys even are allowed just a very small spectrum of emotions that starts very early on in their upbringing. They're allowed to be angry, and they're allowed to be frustrated, right? But we're all humans. So we all have the same spectrum and range of emotions. We all feel sad, we all feel afraid, we all feel tender, we all feel vulnerable. So if you're a woman and you know what it's like to have a full range of emotions, often just in the course of 24 hours, imagine what it would be like if in your conditioning, if your teachers, if your buddies, if your father, if your grandparents, if the culture at large was telling you it's okay when you feel angry or when you feel frustrated, but when you feel scared or vulnerable or afraid, not so much, right? So all of that stuff gets very, very confusing, because in my work with clients, one of the main things that we do is I help them make permission for all of the feelings that they're actually feeling, so they don't have to suppress them or control them or deny them. And that's actually how we come into being a full and total human being, is we allow ourselves to feel everything. That's been a big part of my healing, is just getting comfortable with everything that I feel so that I'm not a slave to it, I'm not owned by it, but I'm also not repressing it. So one of the reasons I wanted to come on and talk about this today is I feel like as women, it's really helpful to just understand the landscape and the internal life of men. If you are dating a man, if you're partnered with a man, if you are feeling really challenged in your relationships with men, what would it be like to just for a moment, just kind of emotionally and energetically just step into that terrain and that world and just feel it for a moment without any judgment or any assessment? I know for me that the deeper my understanding has gone about what it's like to be a man, their drives, their mission, the places where they really haven't been given a lot of permission and allowance to be who and what they naturally are, the more compassion and understanding I have. And that really contributes to me feeling like the level of friendship and allyship that I feel with men. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to share today. I'll be really curious to hear how this lands with you, what your experience is. Again, I'd love to hear from both the men and the women who are checking this out. Feel free to leave it in the comments. And if you have any questions, if there's something that I've said that you don't agree with or it doesn't feel true for you, love to hear that as well. So you guys can always find me at deeperlovebettersex.com. And if you're struggling with what it's like right now to be a man or to date a man or to be really close to a man, or if you are a man and you want to be closer to people in your life and you're not quite sure how, I love doing that work. Be happy to have a conversation with you and support you in any way that I can. And I wish you a really love-filled day. If you are a man, I want you to feel what it feels like to own your power. And if you are a woman, I invite you to just step into what would it be like to understand a little bit more fully the world of men. Take care, everybody. Bye.